Welcome back, distinguished guests of ladies and gentlemen. We continue today's summit and all of its session, for they are about to commence right now. We urge you one final time to take your seats, for depending on that, we will commence our session right away. حضورنا الكريم من السيدات والسادة، نستكمل أعمال قمتنا لهذا اليوم بأولى جلساتنا الحوارية، كما نشير بالانتباه أن كل جلساتنا الحوارية ستأخذ منحا باللغة الإنجليزية. أسعد بصحبتكم، اسمي يوسف عبد الباري. Ladies and gentlemen, our session commences at any second right now. Pleased to make your acquaintance. My name is Yusuf Abdul Bari. And so, welcome to the session on reimagining the future, the megatrends shaping our world. This is our first session. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our distinguished speakers and panelists, starting with Her Excellency Valentina Matvienko, Chairperson of the Council of the Federation, the Russian Federation. Also, Her Excellency Dr. Amal Abdullah Al-Kbisi, President of the Federal National Council of the United Arab Emirates. His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, Minister of State and CEO of ADNOC Group in the United Arab Emirates. Dr. Michio Kaku, a theoretical physicist and best-selling author from the United States of America. From our distinguished speakers and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ray Hammond, author and futurist from the United Kingdom. Also, welcome with me, Mr. Jeff Martin, founder and CEO of Tribal Planet from the United States of America. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, the discussion leader for the panel is Mr. John Defterius, CNN Money Emerging Markets Editor from the United States of America. With all of our panelists set, Mr. John Defterius, the stage is yours.
Let me test this microphone. It works. Yusuf, thanks very much. For those who are standing in the aisles here, if we can have you go ahead and take a seat for our session, I'd be greatly appreciated. We have, as Yusuf was suggesting, an hour to look at the mega trends of the future. Before I move on, I wanted to thank Dr. Amal Al-Kubaisi for the invitation to speak at this event of reimagining the future. In the media business, we say we're media agnostic because we don't, or gender agnostic because we don't recognize the difference between males and females as leaders. For the last 25 years, I've always had female either supervisors, vice presidents, or presidents of our channel. So the discussion about the role of women in parliament to me seems almost very foreign because in the media world, as I was suggesting before, we are gender agnostic. It's great to be here in Abu Dhabi, which is my home for 6 years. So when His Highness Sheikh Saif was talking about Abu Dhabi, your second home, I can proud to say I've spent 6 years here with my complete family, and it is my first home. After 25 years in the business, this is the longest time I've ever spent in any location. London, Washington, New York, Los Angeles, Rome, and Abu Dhabi. But this is my longest stay, and we're very grateful for the hospitality. There's a saying in American English, it's difficult to separate the trees from the forest or to see the trees from the forest. I think in the environment, and His Highness Sheikh Saif talked about it this morning, that we're living in today, there's a danger of getting stuck in the weeds as parliamentarians, to not to see the bigger picture that is in front of us. Let's recognize what's happened over the last 6-7 years. We're living in a post-Arab Spring environment that is impacting the broader Middle East and North Africa. The 2008 to 2010 global financial crisis has led to the inequality that's never been as high as we're witnessing today in 2016 as we go into 2017. and the rise of populism that's taken place as a result of that in the United States and Europe because of slower growth, because of the inequality, and the challenges of competition in the future. But I think Sheikh Saif made a very good point. If we're stuck in the weeds today, if we can't see the forest from the trees, it's very difficult to make changes and see the opportunities for the future. So we thought the best thing to do as we open up the summit today is to look at the mega trends that are in front of us for the next 20 to 30 years. And we have three superb futurists. They're going to take the stage in a moment. We're blessed to have Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber as the Minister of State and, of course, the Director General of ADNOC, and then Dr. Amal Kubaisi to round out our session. But let's begin with the 10-minute introduction from the President of the Russian Federation of the Council there, Her Excellency Valentina Matviyenko. Please. She has a 10-minute introduction to our speech.
Уважаемая госпожа Аль-Кубейси, уважаемый господин Чудхури, уважаемые коллеги, прежде всего я хочу искренне поблагодарить руководство Межпарламентского союза за продолжение прекрасной традиции собирать форум женщин-спикеров парламентов и за приглашение принять в ней участие. Хочу также высказать искреннюю признательность руководству Объединенных Арабских Эмиратов, Федеральному национальному совету и вам лично, уважаемая госпожа Аль-Кубейси, дорогая Амаль, за теплый прием, за исключительное гостеприимство, за блистательную организацию нашего форума. Мы все находимся под огромным впечатлением. Спасибо вам, дорогая Амаль. Коллеги, пользуясь случаем, я хочу также сердечно поздравить всех эмиратцев с 45-й годовщиной образования вашего государства, которое празднуется в эти дни. По историческим меркам ваше государство очень молодое, но как много сделано за это время. Объединенные Арабские Эмираты – это быстро развивающееся современное государство с мощной экономикой, эффективной системой социальной защиты своих граждан, авторитетный член международного сообщества. Только представить, что 45 лет назад от всеобщей безграмотности страна пришла к абсолютной грамотности. И меня поражает, что это единственная страна, где есть Министерство счастья. На нашем форуме нам, женщинам, парламентариям, есть что обсудить. Все мы видим, что мир сегодня проходит через очень сложный этап, может быть, один из самых сложных после Второй мировой войны. Проблем накопилось немало, проблем острых. Вот почему тема, которую мы обсуждаем, актуальна как никогда. Переосмысливать будущее, говорить о глобальных тенденциях, которые меняют мир, дело непростое и в высшей степени ответственное. Речь идет прежде всего о серьезных тектонических сдвигах, которые сотрясают общественно-политические и финансово-экономические устои. Всего лишь 5-10 лет назад эти устои считались незыблемыми, чуть ли не вечными. Сегодня человечество захлестнули волны насилия, жестокости. Миллионы людей страдают от войн и терроризма, от нищеты, болезней, природных катастроф. Многие вынуждены покидать свою родину в поисках лучшей судьбы. Уже сейчас стало очевидно, что после окончания холодной войны был потерян исторический шанс выстроить новый, более справедливый миропорядок для всех, без разделительных линий. Но, к сожалению, была отвергнута концепция уважения суверенитетов членов мирового сообщества, больших и малых, неделимость безопасности. Мы оказались перед лицом, с одной стороны, финансово-экономического, экологического, демографического кризиса, небывалых новых глобальных вызовов, а с другой в очевидной неспособности однополярной модели мира предотвратить как возникновение проблем, так и предложить их эффективное решение. Полностью дискредитировала себя практика организации так называемых цветных революций. Насильственное свержение законных правительств на Ближнем Востоке, Северной Африке, Украины привело к катастрофическим последствиям. Гибнут мирные жители, женщины, дети, гуманитарная катастрофа, и это в нашем 21 веке. И все же выход из сложившейся ситуации есть. Он в объединении усилий всего международного сообщества. Мы, участники форума, наши коллеги в других странах, должны поддерживать постоянный, открытый, честный, продуктивный диалог между парламентариями, между женщинами в высших органах власти своих государств. У нас есть воля воздействовать на мировые процессы, которые сегодня, очевидно, вступили в фазу турбулентности. В муках, но все же рождается новая многополярная международная система. От нас во многом зависит, каким будет ее становление – справедливым, гармоничным и мирным, или же сопряженным с конфликтами и разрушительными диспропорциями. Необходимые инструменты для этого имеются, это в том числе и использование механизмов так называемой мягкой силы, возможностей гражданского общества, женского движения, его парламентского измерения. В мире идет конкуренция культур, ценностей и идей. Это нормально. Другое дело – не допустить ничего, чтобы этот процесс раскалывал международное сообщество, человечество в целом. Конкуренция должна проистекать как взаимообогащение культур с учетом исторических, национальных, религиозных особенностей конкретной страны. Необходимо отказаться даже от мысли, что какая-то одна цивилизация выше других, что именно она должна доминировать. Окончательный переход от конфликтного к диалоговому формату сосуществования на планете возможен только при взаимном уважении интересов, без попыток навязывания тех или иных систем ценностей и политических моделей. Такие попытки влекут за собой лишь нарастание потенциала межцивилизационных конфликтов. Сегодня мы констатируем не просто усиление международного терроризма, но превращение его в системный вызов всему мировому сообществу. Это среди современных глобальных вызовов, пожалуй, самый страшный. Это требует от нас столь же системного и коллективного ответа. Президент России на 70-й сессии Генеральной Ассамблеи ООН призвал создать широкую международную антитеррористическую коалицию. В ноябре прошлого года Совет Федерации Верхняя Палата Российского парламента принял обращение к парламентам иностранных государств и международным парламентским организациям. Мы призвали отложить политические разногласия, приступить к налаживанию сотрудничества в сфере противодействия международному терроризму. Увы, предложения России повисли в воздухе. Вместо реального сотрудничества в борьбе с общим врагом против нас была развязана информационная война. Началось нагнетание русофобии. Нашу страну без всяких на то оснований, без каких-либо доказательств стали обвинять во всех смертных грехах ряд стран ввели санкции. Враждебно была встречена и позиция Российской Федерации о том, что судьба Сирии должна быть в руках самих сирийцев, решаться самими сирийцами, политическими, а не вооруженными методами. Благодаря активным действиям России по просьбе законного сирийского правительства обстановку в Сирии удалось переломить. От террористов освобождена значительная часть территории страны. В марте этого года в античном амфитеатре, кстати, тоже частично разрушенными террористами, в античном амфитеатре освобожденной древней Пальмиры в исполнении русского симфонического оркестра прозвучал концерт с названием «С молитвой о Пальмире». К сожалению, террористы не оставляют попыток вновь захватить этот город. Сейчас, в эти дни, там идут снова тяжелые бои. В результате работы Российского центра примирения враждующих сторон уже более 1000 населенных пунктов в Сирии присоединились к перемирию. В настоящее время сирийская армия освобождает от боевиков крупнейший город страны Алеппо. Усилившиеся призывы из ряда западных столиц к прекращению контртеррористической операции в Восточном Алеппо все больше напоминают последнюю и отчаянную попытку выгородить и спасти курируемых ими и терпящих поражение террористов и экстремистов, либо добиться паузы, чтобы они могли перегруппироваться и снова перевооружиться. Наши западные партнеры уже более месяца твердят о гуманитарной катастрофе в Сирии. Однако за все это время они не направили в эту страну ни крошки хлеба, вообще ничего. Россия же поставляла и поставляет в Сирию тысячи тонн гуманитарных грузов, продукты, лекарства и другое. По поручению президента Путина в непосредственной близости от лагерей беженцев в кратчайшие сроки развернуты аэромобильные госпитали, в которых оказывается помощь мирным гражданам. Недавно в результате обстрела российского госпиталя террористами погибли 2 российские женщины-медсестры. Тяжело ранен врач-педиатр, пострадали местные жители. Это еще раз продемонстрировало всем нам звериную сущность террористов, которые в своих преступлениях не останавливаются ни перед чем. Следует перестать, наконец, делить террористов на хороших, плохих, умеренных. Необходимо прекратить поставки им вооружения, финансовую подпитку. Также надо умножать наше сотрудничество и противодействие нелегальной миграции, торговле людьми, борьбе с незаконным оборотом наркотиков, психотропных веществ, коррупцией, бедностью, глобальным изменением климата планеты. Вот где поле для действительно реального сотрудничества мирового сообщества. Еще одной острой проблемой является стремительное влияние на нашу жизнь технологического прогресса. Об этом очень убедительно говорил в своем выступлении шейх. Через каких-нибудь 10 лет многие традиционные профессии окажутся просто невостребованы, и особенно остро это может сказаться на женщинах. Предлагаю направить в Международную организацию труда обращение с просьбой подготовить всеобъемлющий доклад с учетом этих факторов и новых вызовов. Такова реальная картина. Похоже, что мужчины-политики со своим брутальным стилем не справились с управлением миром. Они допустили войны, конфликты, насилие. Это, конечно же, шутка, но, как говорят у нас в России, в каждой шутке есть доля правды, и это ответ нашему в какой-то степени модератору. Жизнь показывает, что глобальная политика требует большей гибкости, толерантности, терпения, уметь не только слушать, но и слышать, готовности к компромиссам. Все эти качества свойственны нам, женщинам, в гораздо большей степени, чем мужчинам. Женщин в политике на высших и высоких постах в системе государственной власти, в том числе в парламентах, становится все больше. Эта тенденция наблюдается сегодня уже повсеместно. И, следовательно, от нас сейчас очень многое зависит. Мир находится реально на распутье. Мы, женщины-парламентарии, действительно можем принимать решения, предпринимать шаги, которые способны направить ход событий в созидательное русло в интересах всего человечества. И прежде всего, в интересах укрепления безопасности на планете, налаживания подлинно взаимовыгодного сотрудничества. Наш голос может и должен быть услышан. Своей активностью, целеустремленностью женщины-политики дают вдохновляющий пример, побуждают к такой же деятельности других женщин. Мы обязаны вовлекать наших подруг во все сферы жизни общества, от производства до управления государством. И в то же время не забывать о такой великой нашей миссии, как быть женой, матерью, оберегать домашний очаг, воспитывать детей. Многие из нас сумели сочетать все это, и наш долг помочь всем женщинам занять активную жизненную позицию, помочь политически, законодательно, помочь личным примером. Есть вопросы, которые, на мой взгляд, нам, женщинам, особенно близки. Думаю, вы согласитесь, что современному человечеству не хватает добра, милосердия. Мы можем и должны привнести в политику больше гуманизма. Российские женщины-парламентарии стали инициаторами целого ряда гуманитарных проектов и программ. Мы добились принятия стратегических документов, определяющих в России государственную политику в сфере защиты детей, женщин, пожилых людей. Нам удалось в результате значительно повысить рождаемость, достичь исторического минимума младенческой и материнской смертности. Так, показатель младенческой смертности составляет сейчас 5,9 промилле. Существенно увеличилась продолжительность жизни наших граждан. При этом мы работаем в тесном контакте с институтами гражданского общества. Один из примеров такой совместной работы – проект по профилактике рака молочной железы у женщин, поддержанный Верхней Палатой парламента. Мы создали реальные условия для того, чтобы все российские женщины ежегодно проходили необходимые обследования. Не менее острой остается тема и профилактики наркомании. Уважаемые коллеги, о том, что потенциал женщин поистине огромен, что они заряжены на действия, убедительно свидетельствуют и итоги Евразийского женского форума, прошедшего в Санкт-Петербурге в прошлом году. Он собрал представительниц всех континентов, женщин из почти 90 стран мира. И форум ярко продемонстрировал неравнодушную позицию женщин-лидеров, их готовность брать на себя ответственность за будущее своих стран. В следующем году в Санкт-Петербурге состоится 137-я ассамблея Межпарламентского союза. Я благодарю вас всех за поддержку и хотела бы пригласить всех на этот форум. Буду рада видеть вас всех в моем родном городе Санкт-Петербурге. Именно объединение усилий позволит нам переломить негативные тенденции современности, чтобы строить мир будущего, в котором нет места нищете, голоду, войнам. Мир, в котором будут обязательно счастливы наши дети. Как сказал великий русский писатель Достоевский, даже счастье всего мира не стоит одной слезинки ребенка. Полагаю, что в последующих выступлениях мы услышим конкретные предложения по решению стоящих перед нами непростых задач. Благодарю вас за внимание.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. You're going to sit in so we have the question and answer session at the end, if time permits us. Just for housekeeping purposes, we have 40 minutes left before we break for lunch. We have, as I suggested in my opening remarks, 3 futurists, and then the remarks coming from our 2 distinguished guests on the panel, Dr. Malik Obeisi and Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, giving both the corporate and governance viewpoints here from the UAE. And as the Madam Chairperson suggested, to put concrete proposals, how we dovetail concrete proposals for the future. We want to be able to take some questions, and we have different people in the aisles, and we'll save that for the last 10 minutes of our session. Let's welcome the first of 3 futurists, and I'm not going to give their long bios because of time, but we invite you to look at the app that's on your iPhones or on your smartphones in front of you. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Ray Hammond, the author and futurist, speaking now.
Good morning. Over the last 35 years, I have identified 7 trends, 7 megatrends that will shape the next 20, 30 or 40 years. And most of these megatrends have remained unchanged over the last 35 years. You will be familiar with most of these trends. The interesting thing is to see how they interconnect. The first trend is asymmetric population explosion. Today we are 7.6 billion people on the planet. By 2030, the United Nations says we will be 8.2 billion people. By 2050, 9 to 10 billion people. How are we going to find the water, the food, and the energy for an additional 3 or 4 billion people? That is the first of the megatrends. The second megatrend is climate change. Despite the views of the President-elect of the United States, I know that the world's scientists are certain that climate change is real. We have a duty, a responsibility, collectively and individually, to do our best to ameliorate the effects of our overheated climate. The third key driver of the future comes out of the first two: expanding population and climate change. It is therefore the ongoing energy crisis. And energy is in crisis because at a time of population explosion, we must make a transition towards cleaner, renewable energy sources. This will take decades, but yet it is the third key driver of the future. The fourth of my 7 megatrends is the one that is changing. It is globalization. The forces of globalization are unstoppable. But in some Western nations, there was a reaction against globalization. The populations are in what the futurist Alvin Toffler called future shock. Voters are reacting in populist movements. They are becoming reactionary. But globalization will continue. The fifth key driver of the future are the multiple revolutions in medical science and the life sciences. I have had my own DNA decoded. Stem cells will be used to rejuvenate us. Digital health technologies will transform precision medicine. At a time when there are so many bad things in the world, the promise of longevity and better medical care is a real promise. The sixth key driver of the future is accelerating exponential technology development. It is driving so much of today, and it will actually bring wonders forward. It is the joker, the wild card in the pack of cards, because it is hard to imagine the things that this driver will bring forward in the next 50 years. And the 7th megatrend is the bottom 2 billion people, the poorest people in the world, who are at the moment playing no role in global development. The reason they are a megatrend is simple. If we do not collectively reach out to include, to embrace the world's poorest people, they will become the terrorists and the warlords of tomorrow. I am passionate about women in leadership. I am honoured to be invited to this event, and I thank you for your attention.
Terrific. Thank you, Ray, for speaking on time there. We were just going to do some housekeeping and give you the clicker to Dr. Michio Kaku, the theoretical physicist, and one who's going to be looking at the third and fourth industrial revolutions. So it's staged beautifully. Laid out the 7 megatrends by Ray here, and then moving forward on the impact of the third and fourth industrial revolution. Nice warm welcome to Dr. Kaku.
Thank you very much. After such a nice introduction, I can't wait to hear the speaker myself. Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to answer a simple question today, and that is, where does wealth come from anyway? Some people would say it comes from workers. Other people would say it comes from wise politicians. Other people say it comes from government policies. Ultimately, wealth comes from science and technology. But science and technology comes in waves. And today I'm going to talk about the waves of science that have created the wealth of today. In my books, I've interviewed over 300 of the world's top scientists to give the most accurate description of the next 20, 50, and 100 years. And in my books, I try to answer the question of all questions, the question that has haunted theologians, philosophers for centuries, and that is there intelligent life on the earth? Probably not. Any alien from outer space watching television would say, nope, no intelligent life on this planet. But let us now talk about the waves of wealth generation. In the next slide, let's talk about how steam power was the first great revolution. You know, the average lifespan, average life expectancy throughout human history has been less than 30 years of age. We didn't live long throughout most of the poverty-stricken age of the past. We were peasants. We were nomads, wandering in the forest and desert until the coming of the Industrial Revolution. Steam power gave us locomotives, factories, tremendous wealth generation. The second wave of prosperity and science was the electric revolution. All of a sudden, we had electric light bulbs, television, radio, radar, telecommunications, giving us life-saving and labor-saving devices in our kitchen. The third wave is the high-tech revolution of today. Lasers, computers, telecommunications, the space program. So the question for today is, what is the fourth wave of wealth generation? Where will wealth come from in the next 20 to 50 years? You ask any scientist, and they will tell you that the fourth wave is going to be a combination of artificial intelligence, biotech, and nanotech. These are going to be the drivers of wealth generation and progress into the future. Next slide. So let's talk about them one by one. Let's first talk about artificial intelligence and the future of the computer. In the next 20 years, computer chips will cost less than a penny. That's the cost of scrap paper. Computer power will be everywhere and nowhere. We will live in a world of virtual reality and augmented reality. And where will the internet be? The internet will be in our contact lens. You will blink and you will be online. And who were the first people to buy internet contact lenses? college students studying for final examinations. They will blink and see all the answers to the exam right there, meaning that we would have to change our entire educational program because knowledge will be instantaneous and for free. In your contact lens, when you meet people at a conference like this, you'll see a biography next to their image, telling you who these people are. And if they speak to you in Chinese, it will translate Chinese into any language you want and give subtitles underneath their image. How many times have you been at a conference like this and you meet somebody and you recognize them, but you don't know their name? And you say to yourself, I know this person. Jim, John, Jake, who is this person? In the future, your contact lens will say, it's Jim, stupid. You meet him every year at this conference. And artificial intelligence will eventually give us a robotic industry bigger than the automobile industry of today. Jobs will be in the form of maintaining, repairing, servicing, program, and designing robots. It'll be bigger than the automobile industry because the automobile of the future will be a robot. You will talk to it. It'll drive itself. It will park itself. You will simply tell the car where to park and then call for the car when you need the car. The car itself will become a robot and part of the artificial intelligence industry. And robots will be emotional. You will be able to interface with them. They will be emotional. They'll recognize when you're happy, when you're sad. And you will find robots in your living room. In the future, your living room will have wallpaper that is intelligent. We can make intelligent paper. Your wallpaper, you can talk to it. And let's say you have a medical problem. What do? You go to the wallpaper and say, mirror, mirror on the wall. I want to talk to RoboDoc right now. Boom! RoboDoc appears in your wallpaper. It looks real, but it's animated. It is artificially intelligent. RoboDoc answers all your medical questions by scanning the internet, scanning all medical journals, and giving you sound medical advice. This is going to revolutionize medical care. The rising costs of medical care will be blunted by the fact that sound medical advice will be in your contact lens. It'll be in your wallpaper. And if you're in a car accident and you want to talk to a lawyer real fast, what do? Talk to RoboLawyer. RoboLawyer is inside your wristwatch. It'll speak any language you want and give you sound legal advice. In other words, artificial intelligence will become bigger than the automobile industry of today. Next slide. And now, let's talk about an even bigger revolution, and that is the biotech revolution. Today, we can grow human body parts. We can grow from your own cells. We can grow ears, noses, cartilage. We can grow skin, bone. We can grow heart valves, windpipes, and bladders. In the future, we will grow livers and kidneys and perhaps even parts of the brain itself. We will have a human body shop. Just like when your fender, your engine, your windshield has to be replaced at a body shop, we will have a human body shop. And cancer, we will attack using digital medicine. Every time you go to the bathroom, your toilet will pick up fragments of cancer genes, cancer enzymes, cancer proteins in your bodily fluids, and tell you that you have cancer, and that in 10 years, you will have a tumor. Ladies and gentlemen, What I'm telling you is, in the future, the word tumor will disappear from the English language. 10 years before a tumor forms, you will have a digitalized bathroom that'll detect proteins, enzymes, genes from cancer cells before they appear. The beginning is called liquid biopsies, which are going to be commercially available starting this year. In this room, sad to say, many of you may have cancer growing in your bodies right now, but you don't know it. And you won't know it for 5, 10 years into the future. And in the future, your bathroom will tell you that you will get cancer. And life expectancy is going to also change. As I mentioned, throughout human history, life expectancy was less than 30 years of age. But now we're beginning to tease apart the genes which control the aging process. We don't have a cure for aging yet, but we can foresee the day when we might be able to halt the aging process. For example, if you eat 30% less, you live 30% longer. This is held true for every organism that we have ever tested, from insects, spiders, all the way up to primates. You eat 30% less, you live 30% longer. And we're now unraveling the genes which control this process, the sirtuin genes. So in the future, our grandkids may have the option of hitting the age of 30 and stopping. They may like to be 30 years of age for several decades. We will be able to control or mitigate the aging process. Next slide. However, with every promise, there's a warning. Science is liberating. Science enriches us. It gives us knowledge. It changes our destiny. It is one of the main factors behind the liberation of women, when knowledge, information is for free. However, there are winners and losers in any revolution. And that's why we have to make sure that certain peoples are not left behind. Let me wind up on the following note. In the United States and in Europe, we're experiencing a revolution in terms of Brexit and the election of Donald Trump in the United States. Some people say it's immigration. Some people say it's sexism and racism. Other people say, no, it's taxation. It's a combination of all of the above. But what drives this is the change in science and technology. Some people are being left behind. In the United States, 1/3 of the population has done very well in the last 20 years. 1/3 has seen their incomes rise handsomely. 2/3 have seen their income stagnate and fall behind. That also corresponds roughly to the percent that go to college. Roughly 1/3 of the American population graduate from college. 2/3 don't. So we see a correlation between education, science, and jobs. So we have to make sure that we don't leave behind the bottom 2/3 because they also vote. And how do we do this? By having a massive program to first educate our people. In the United States, we have a very good educational system that graduates people to function very well in the year 1950. The only problem is we don't live in 1950 anymore. So first, we have to educate people so that they can make jobs into the future. Second, we have to fund science. Science is the engine of prosperity. It is the source, the ultimate source of all the wealth we see in society. We have to nurture it. We have to fund it. We have to make sure that young people have access to the latest developments in science. Third, entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurs to create new industries, because these people do not, quote, replace other workers. No, they create industries. We have to make sure that we have entrepreneurs that aren't saddled with red tape, that aren't taxed to death, entrepreneurs that are free to create new industries and new sources of wealth. So I'd like to close on the following. We're witnessing now the beginning of the fourth wave. The fourth wave is changing capitalism itself. Capitalism is making the transition from commodity capital to intellectual capital. And we have to make sure that we don't leave behind the bottom two-thirds. The bottom two-thirds that are not involved with intellectual capital. The bottom two-thirds that are not involved with globalization. We have to make sure that all of us are empowered, all of us are educated, and all of us have the opportunity to make for a better life. Thank you.
Okay, I do look forward to a number of the things you mentioned, but particularly the human body shop. Now that I've crossed 50 years old, I'd like to change some parts already. We'd all agree, right? Dr. Sultan doesn't feel that just yet because he's much younger than us. Our third of the futurists spent better than 4 decades in Silicon Valley. So we've had a really phenomenal taste of the mega trends and then looking into the future about the bottom two-thirds of society. Let's welcome Jeff Martin to the stage. He's the founder and CEO of Tribal Planet.
So I have some good news and some bad news. The good news, or actually I'll start with the bad news. The bad news is technology is not going to solve our problems. That's also the good news. Because technology without culture, without parliaments, without leadership, loses its way. And in spending most of my life professionally in Silicon Valley, every lesson I've learned, and this is why it's such a great honor to be here today, is that when culture lags technology, we make mistakes. So I'd like to share with you my most transformational experience. Trying to get the slide. There we go. When I was challenged by a woman leader to help the mothers of Orissa, India, a Maharaja in Orissa, India said, can you use some of the things you learned and change the way people bought music and the way they used devices to buy video and TV and tickets and commerce? And can you apply those things not to commercial change, but societal change? So let me show you what that looks like. It wasn't about dealing with poverty. It was working with a woman leader with the village in Orissa, India, of mothers. 400 mothers were given Android phones. The signal was enhanced in Orissa, India. It's an area of the ultra-poor, not just the poor. We're deciding where they're going to find their food or when they're going to walk to the clinic or where their water will come from can be a day-long activity. Now, what you're seeing here is this is big data behind an app with the power of women. Because the women leader understood that in this area of Orissa, if you look on the left side, that community, using location-based data, with an app designed for women who weren't even literate, they knew how to make the decisions that day that if their children went to school, there was a reward of food in that school. The children wouldn't have to look for food. The food was the fair exchange of value of the mothers deciding their children could be in school. If the mother took the children with them to the clinic, which is normally something in Orissa you only do when you're deathly ill, the children got vaccinations and the mother got medical care. And the third and final part was if people using the phone, the mother, watched the videos on the smartphones that we provided for them and using fingerprint recognition could show enough people watch the video of how they're contaminating their own water supply, well, then we could get people to commit to bring a well in, knowing the well was not going to be contaminated after the fact. What's fascinating about this is this wasn't dealing with poverty. It was empowering women with an inspired and enlightened woman leader, a Maharaja who said, I know my villagers, if given the choice of food and education, will choose education every time if food is the reward. Given the choice of medical care, if we can have children get vaccinations at the same time their parents get medical care, then we can have preventive medicine. And if we can understand the issue that we're polluting our own water supply, then somebody will invest a well knowing it won't be contaminated. The real breakthrough of big data behind societal behavior is the final dashboard, which is the individual citizen, Ashish Sahu. Now, what's exciting about Ashish, because we know the phone of his mother and that he's using in his family, we knew that not only was he going to school and getting food, but his grades were improving. Or as one of my mentors, Judy Rubin at Harvard, said, he became optimistic. His artwork started changing in colors used. The portrayal of the human figure also started to change. Because that same boy that was getting food, we also knew had gone to the clinic to get vaccinations and was in the area that had safe drinking water. So this device makes everybody accountable when it's location-based. We knew when he was in school, we knew when he was in the clinic, and we knew when he was near the well. And it wasn't spying, it was permission-based access. The Maharaja had the insight to realize that give that mother the choice, they'll tell you when the boy's in the school, when he's in the clinic to get the vaccinations, and when the water is safe, because enough people in the village understand the issue of contamination. This is big data as empowerment behind the app economy. And this is possible for all things as long as we respect citizens as consumers. But here's the bad news. Fake news. This has been going on for a long time. It's shocking to me in Silicon Valley that only now this story is coming out. Why didn't it not come out before? Because my technology industry was making money on the ads behind fake news. In fact, there are more fake news sites than accurate news sites. And that was an advertising-driven economy. Now, the good news is with the public response, now the big social media companies are having to change that. And now they're taking the advertising down from the fake news sites. But that's not enough. There actually are algorithms, not perfect, but that can predict when a site is most likely fake news. But we can't go so far that then it becomes censorship. What we have to do is teach young people how to curate their own news, how to ask questions and be query-based, that sometimes the questions are more important than the answers. So when you look at what young people are today, I coined this term in the late 90s, it's not a demographic millennials, it's actually a behavior profile called psychographics. I've called them screen agers. They've been born where the world always had screens, not just a cell phone, but PlayStation for video games, a tablet, now even a smart TV. And what you have to realize is the revolution literally in our last 15 years went from this voice to this music and watching and content to this augmented reality and things like Pokemon Go. Right? Pokemon, where now kids are reaching to around their world, and yes, they're going outside, but they're trying to connect to the physical world around them. This is actually an opportunity that's a good one if we give Pokemon Go, so to speak, a purpose. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to actually show the video from the International Space Station, but what I want to show you, well, I guess I will.
There's a huge need for more scientists on Earth. We have just begun to explore. I'm really excited to be a part of citizen science because it connects our children with scientists all around the world, not only enabling excitement, education, and many possibilities for our youth, but for them to be real contributors to our real scientific needs. Who would have thought that this device could turn into a microscope, telescope, accelerometer, and a fun STEM educational laboratory, literally enabling anybody to touch the stars from wherever they are.
That's obviously Scott Kelly, who set a record for the longest time in space. But what's important about what he just showed is now that this device is literally a science lab in your pocket. For schools that don't have science labs, and even those that do, this means that children with over 71 instruments, colorimeters, spectrophotometers, microscopes, telescopes, all that's now on a device. And so when we find children can actually go from Pokemon Go to taking pictures of leaves and using the camera, send that photo of a leaf to a server that goes to scientists all over the world, that over 1 million kids shows trees are indeed migrating north with climate change, or measuring the salinity or the temperature of the water in the Arabian Sea, giving scientists spatial and temporal data, kids go beyond Pokemon Go to the night sky, to the leaf at their feet, or even the sound of a city. And we're seeing more and more, not only do kids want to do this because they want to collaborate with scientists, but science is the new cool. It is the new empowerment. In fact, we know now, according to the Smithsonian Science Research Institute, that kids that are taught science and get excited about science outside the classroom, doing things like Scott Kelly was talking about, measuring climate change for scientists who can't get on planes and get all the spatial and temporal data, that they actually read and write better. That science literacy as empowerment gets kids under the age of 10 to actually read and write faster because they want to share their discoveries as they explore the world with their phone. In fact, we even know that second languages now are improving because they want to share with other kids experiencing the drought, perhaps in Iran, with kids in San Francisco who also have a drought, or the drought in Brazil, or the drought in South Africa. In fact, screenagers define identity more by what they have in common than what they have as differences through social media. In other words, my generation, what religion were you? What gender were you? But screenagers through the world of social media have this looking glass where issues like climate change, they want to connect with kids who are also going through climate change or water deprivation. And this is a great hope for our world that has nothing to do with technology. It's just the nature of screenagers wanting to share. And if we can get them beyond Pokemon Go to actually collaborate with the great scientists of the world, well, those become new aspirational figures. They're not only helping scientists, but they feel important outside the classroom, where science is more about fun and learning and solving mysteries and secrets than whether you're smart enough or your grades are good enough or you got the right test scores. This is a huge trend in citizen science that really brings citizens together with young people and scientists to solve the world's problems. This would have kept us from thinking climate change was science opinion when in fact it's been science reality for a long time. And you'll see more and more of this trend in this region as well. But another extremely important thing is gender equality. I was lucky enough to be part of the UN initiative He for She, and I would just reinforce, obviously 50% of the population cannot be excluded for us to be innovative, even if it's coming from the inspiration of science. But again, if you don't get to a young girl by 4th or 5th grade, or by age 10 globally, gender pressures take over, and science isn't about empowerment and discovery and self-curation. It now becomes whether or not you're a girl or boy. We must be thinking under the age of 10. It's too late at the high school age, and it's too late at the college age. We have to be more innovative in the elementary education space. And one last thing about He for She I think is real important. Fumzili, who is the Undersecretary of the UN Agency for Women, her genius in He for She was the he's for she's. And the power that men are as important in supporting women as women supporting women, and we can't forget that. Very, very, very important. The last point I want to make about the most inalienable right is that in the future where citizens are consumers, we have to own our own data. The citizen has to own the data. That patient record up in the cloud is their data to share when they go to a hospital or to see a doctor. But what's also really important to understand is the technology industry is an advertising-based industry. Facebook, Twitter, Google, they're not citizen platforms. They're social media platforms paid for by advertisers. We must think as parliaments and leaders how to influence the technology industry to become more citizen platforms where they honor the citizen and truth networks, not just social networks. Because in the future, we have to own our data or we won't be able to trust the governments that we work with. And finally, on AI and jobs, I'm going to be really honest with you. Artificial intelligence is happening much faster than any of us in Silicon Valley thought. The very nature of what a word job means will go away within the next 10 or 15 years. If kids don't find their own passion and make their passion a pursuit, they risk being unemployable. The first jobs that went away were the jobs that risked life. But now the mundane jobs, driving cars, serving people at restaurants or tellers, they're gone in the next 10 years. And in many ways, Silicon Valley is moving too fast on this. We need to be thinking once again how to get to young children fast enough so they can align the passion with a pursuit that becomes not just lifelong learning, but socioeconomically gives them choices to keep relearning so they can be retrained in the workforce. A lot of this is understanding how to take the excitement of Star Wars, the moment they see that film, and transition through apps and educational channels, a job in designing robots. A lot of people don't know this, but we have the largest number of women going to college and graduate school to design robots. And a lot of people in the entertainment industry believe it has a lot to do with that Star Wars didn't have the original Star Wars I'm speaking of. It did not have many women figures. The robots actually, CP3O, I never get these right, R2-D2, CP3O, had either feminine personalities or boyish, aloof personalities that girls identified with. It's at that moment we should share with them the path where a job could be not just building robots in school, but that there's, as it was said before by our very illustrious scientists, the jobs of building robots are real today. There are more jobs building robots in energy companies than all the space programs combined. And we have to have young people know that the moment they're excited by something like Star Wars. So to close, one of the other problems with the social media world is we create a celebrity culture. And that celebrity culture gave kids the unrealistic thinking they could be a movie star. There are less than 200 movie stars in Hollywood that can make a full living by being movie stars. Or they could be a music artist. If they bought the Beats headphones, they could be Dr. Dre. There are even less than 200 artists that can make a bona fide living making music. We have got to start realizing the new aspirations are people like Scott Kelly, who, by the way, is a great example of passion meets pursuit. Because he didn't say, and wake up, I want to become a pilot. He was a very bad student, as you've heard him say. He's even said this in Abu Dhabi at one of our programs. And he said he read the book Right Stuff. And in reading the book Right Stuff, he realized if he didn't go to school to become a pilot, because you have to be a pilot to be an astronaut, he could not realize his dream of being an astronaut. So he reverse engineered the dream, the aspiration to be an astronaut, and then figured out the path to get there. Just like I said, his passion became his pursuit. So again, Silicon Valley, or the Silicon Valleys around the world, because there are many, are not going to solve the problems. They are technology that empower others, just like I showed you with the Maharaja and the young mothers in Orissa, India. Parliaments need to realize that the technology industry needs to be managed and that the citizen needs to be looked at as a consumer. And in an app economy, the government apps, the healthcare apps, the education apps can then get to young people early enough for them to control their destiny and rule their lives. Thank you very much for your patience and attention.
Dr. Martin, thanks very much. We're knocking on the door of our time, but I want to bring in Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber and then Her Excellency Dr. Amal Al-Kubaisi. We had 3 terrific snapshots into the medium-term future. You can see how the pace of change is taking place. We're straddling east and west here. In fact, on air, as you know, we call it the crossroads of east and west. And this government's undertaking a phenomenal diversification plan to 2030 and the UAE transformation plan to 2021. With what you have absorbed today, and I saw Dr. Kaku's comments about the keys of education, science, and entrepreneurs, they seem to dovetail beautifully into the diversification beyond energy here in Abu Dhabi. Take what you listened to today and apply it to that diversification plan that's underway, well underway here in Abu Dhabi and the broader UAE. Please.
Well, thank you very much, John. And I can't begin before thanking the organizers, the Federal National Council, and all of those who have partnered with them in setting up such a great platform. Thank you very much, and thank you, Dr. Amal Kubaisi, for helping achieve such an ambitious forum and a platform for such a gathering. While I was listening to such interesting presentations by such esteemed participants and world leaders, I couldn't stop thinking of how did the UAE, since its inception, start seeing and planning for the future. In fact, one of the very serious, meaningful megatrends that we have all witnessed in the past few years, and which will continue playing a very important, prominent role in shaping our future, our political system, as well as our economics ecosystems, is the changing energy landscape and its direct impact on people, technology, innovation, and ensuring sustainable economic growth for our nations. If we were to couple that with the UAE's phenomenal economic diversification plans, which was very much centered around what they do best, and that has always been centered around energy, coupled with people. Now, why people? Since day one, and since the inception of the United Arab Emirates, it was always clear, because we saw the writing in the wall. Our leadership saw the writing in the wall. In order for us to meaningfully contribute to the advancement of our energy sector and our economy and our nation, and for us to play a responsible role in addressing global challenges, we have to invest not only on the ground, but also above ground. So we did a very good job in investing on the ground, whereby we have established the infrastructure, the very sophisticated infrastructure we have today in the UAE. But what's very remarkable is the unprecedented approach in how the UAE invested in its own people. And that's, in fact, what have allowed for us to leapfrog in a number of sectors, including energy, including innovation, including technology, including services, knowledge-led industries, all of the above. And as such, the UAE has been able to clearly and uniquely demonstrate a very special capability when it comes to economic diversification. Having said that, the UAE's efforts in achieving diversification and in their effort in playing a more prominent role in addressing global challenges doesn't stop here. Only last night, as part of the number of bilaterals I had, I was asked by a few, I know it wasn't the coordinated question, but I was asked by a few, how was it possible for such a nation, you are just celebrating your 45th anniversary, to achieve such developments? My answer was very simple. My country is only 3 years older than me. I've seen it all. I've gone through the whole experience. It is simple. It is the wise vision of our leadership, their commitment, the loyalty of its people to its own leadership, and the fact that we know, no matter what we do, we will always live in one global economy. So we have to always, at all times, ensure that whatever we do, we contribute to the advancement, to the progress, and to the good of our global economy. Today, unlike many, even though we know that the changing energy landscape will play a prominent role in helping shape up the future economies, we continue to capitalize on our deep energy expertise, as well as our financial resources and our access to technology, to help diversify our future, building on our energy expertise. So we're not only dependent on hydrocarbon, we're not only dependent on nuclear. Nuclear is only acting as a bridge to take us from us being fully dependent on hydrocarbons to a future that is more centered around knowledge-led industries. While renewables is the only share of our total power mix or energy mix that will grow over time. Now that is how the UAE sees the future of energy, which is going to be central to any nation and to any economy around the world.
Let me have a quick follow-up with you, if I may. I had an interesting conversation and interview with His Excellency Sultan Al Mansouri, the Minister of Economy for the UAE. And I think it's very apropos today in a world that's being driven by populism in the United States and Europe and backlash to globalization, as Ray Hammond was talking about. And he said, John, think differently, because the UAE is going to be more globalized than the world and not less globalized. We'll embrace globalization because of the pillars of transport, because of the pillars of energy and east-west trade, serving as a bridge between the two. Do you agree with that analysis? And can society go along, an educated society go along with a more globalized economy in the medium term, in your view?
In fact, it is already very much evident that the UAE plays a global role. Only through the infrastructure that the UAE has been able to establish in a very short period of time.
But the people are ready for that.
The regulatory framework and the fact that its people are the ones who have actually helped shape up the future of our country, I am very much confident to tell you that the UAE is already very much evident. It is very much evident for us that the UAE plays a global role. I mean, let's just take a step back and think for a second. What we've been able to do through the services that we provide, through our ability to attract knowledge-led industries and ensure its spillover impact on our economy. The way we're diversifying our economy by building on our strength in the energy sector, the UAE has already become not only as an interesting place to visit, but in fact, as a very beneficial place to conduct business. I don't know of any global company that does not have a physical presence in the UAE, capitalizing on its ease of doing business, as well as it being a logistical hub and its proximity to the heart of the world. So, in fact, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, great. Let me bring in Dr. Al-Kubaisi, who's receiving some notes as we speak. And I had this almost as a question, Dr. Al-Kubaisi, if you're set. The figures are impressive. 70% of the university graduates in the UAE today are women. 30% of the SMEs being generated are generated by women. But my thoughts going forward, your thoughts here today, are for a call to action. How do you take this event today, advance what we see as a framework within the UAE, and walk away from the global summit of women parliamentarians and say, we achieved the collaboration we're looking for today? Because as my opening comments were suggesting, it is a more challenging environment today than it was even 5 years ago. Please.
Thank you very much, John. First, let me again welcome all our guests, and I'm so privileged to be here on a panel with Her Excellency Mrs. Valentina, but also with top scientists who have changed, the way not only science goes, but also people, how they think about science. And their presence today is a real translation of how we should really be united in envisioning how the future will be shaped. And I thank my brother, Dr. Sultan, for giving us also this opportunity to hear his point of view, where he is leading a very important and a strategic priority sectors at the UAE, and he's been, improving to all of us how we can envision and shape our future by having the will, the commitment, and the vision, and also the people who know how to reflect that on their needs. Yes, after hearing all the mega trends and what's coming to us, and less than a year ago when I joined my sisters, speakers of parliament in the world, and I knew that there would be a meeting for women speakers that's held by the IPU, who is a strategic partner for the Federal National Council. I thought it's a great opportunity so that we can get together and we can think ahead how we can, participate as representative people on going forward. Taking part of the executive government that I used to be in made me realize that we need really not only legislations, but we need really to understand exactly our needs and our, way forward, and then from there see what this would demand. And also the parliamentarian diplomacy that we have been practicing effectively at the Federal National Council made us realize that we need really to build these strong bridges among us as cultures and civilizations and people and countries and parliaments, and talk more with each other, but not independently, jointly. And we should really build this kind of dialogue with our scientists, inventors, with the government, with youth, with the private sector, to be able really to come into a full perception of where we're going, and also to realize the challenges we are facing. Beside all the mega trends that have been here, being exposed, and we will hear maybe more about it tomorrow in the innovation sector, I think there are global trends that are affecting everyone. But if we are expressing a trend of a different nature here in this region particularly, that we've witnessed and we've seen, is the spread of violent extremism. It's spreading across all the world, and it's affecting all parts of the world. Religiously, it's not religiously motivated only. It's a symptom of post-globalization. And stating that made you see it from a different angle. So it's related also to the megatrends. Why we say this? Because the rise of discourse against others, be it immigrants, Muslims, or any ethnics, indicate a new era of anti-globalization. And fear is the primal instinct that is driving this extremism. This globalized world is now a threat, not an opportunity. And that makes us, as legislators, as representatives of people, should really, make a stand and think forward in a different way. Racism and sectarianism are a mutating virus that's transmitted through hatred. And hatred is a protectionism at heart. And the more protectionist we are, the more prone to hatred we will be. So when we can combat extremism, if we allow hatred to be a weapon in that fight, that's the way we should be. We should use it as a weapon, not to use it the way we see it in Iraq or Syria and other places, even affecting Europe. Stating that...
Dr. Gubesi, do you want to bring that mic a little bit closer to you?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
I hope you can hear me better.
Yes?
Yeah. So the concept of society is at risk, as we live in extremely individualized microcosms, and increased inward thinking coupled with an advancement of technology and robotics also could possibly trigger a man and machine conflict. Stating that and knowing what we are living in the world, we still have hope. Nonetheless, as my friend and brother Dr. Sultan have expressed, we in the UAE are embracing the future. We have national strategy for the fourth industrial revolution, and we have created a future acceleration program even. But we are also involved in countering extremism that threatens to hinder this future. Our legislations of tolerance, the knowledge production, and space exploration, it's all an attempt to create a new imagination of the future. We live in one of the most conflict-ridden areas in the world, but we are still working towards the future. Hope is our secret weapon in that. So that's why, from embracing this in the UAE, we came with all this message that we, as politicians, as legislators, as parliamentarians, and as women, we should work together, not alone, male and female, youth and all generations, and also with all the different sectors, with also our scientists and thinkers. We should come together and we should talk about the influence of these megatrends with our fundamental also human values and equality for everyone. And that's why our call of action from this, while we are spending greatly on research now, we should think also about other fields, the solution for sustainability, water scarcity, food security, and solution also for poverty. And all these are related to people. What I would really need us to do, it's not only through these 2 days we can carry forward or what we are hoping to have from Abu Dhabi Declaration that hopefully we will all, uphold tomorrow and embrace. It's the intention of all those people to come together that makes the difference. The passion here that made them come from all around the world, regardless their backgrounds, parliamentarian, government, or in any field. They have the will and the commitment. And we need to invest in that. We need to keep, this commitment going on. And having the Interparliamentary Union as an international organization who's been, sharing the same values and trying to work for the benefit for the people, bringing this together, whom we share value with here at the United Arab Emirates and through also the Federal National Council. Here we look at happiness, and we look at also tolerance, as not only values, but we govern them through having, a new future government that have these ministries. So we need to uphold the unity of destiny at this point, more than ever, because if we want really to survive a human race, we have to do this, and we have to do it now. And thinking of the future shouldn't be seen as a competitive advantage. It needs to be a collective human endeavor, so we could take every possible step to allow us to coordinate our efforts together. And doing so, as we are shaping the future, we shouldn't look and put our ethical values aside. They should be always at the heart, because technology should be rooted in our value system, and including those of justice and equality. And so the technology we create doesn't end up undermining our own humanity. Therefore, I would like really to call for an action through what we are working on today. We need to mobilize our collective efforts to meet the grand challenges tomorrow. When we, women parliamentarians, are united, we can really, when we women are united, we can really move mountains. And you all know that. You all know that. And because you have the will to move these mountains, you are with us here today. Because I couldn't have done this alone. They joined me in doing this. And because we all share the same vision and the same passion and the same commitment to our people, when you are a woman speaker, you know what it takes, you know what it represents, you know what you should do toward your people. But when we are all also united as men and women, we can move the world, and this is what makes a big difference. So I call really here upon all my fellow parliamentarians, the government leaders, private sector leaders and youth from all around the world to come together to support the development of a vehicle that can utilize us and unite us to prepare for the future and to shape our future instead of waiting for the future to shape us. Through such a vehicle, we can learn the global implications of future megatrends and solve together the most critical also challenges with all faced to run together united in it. We need to bring our resources together in talent and energy to look at how we can prepare for this future and fight against the different global trends that we are facing, like extremism and others, and even cyber, wars. And how can we do so to fight even inequality, especially among genders? How we can turn peace and abundance for some into peace and abundance for all. So I call upon all of you here united that we can really shape our future, starting from what we're doing here at Abu Dhabi. And willingly, we can do this, and we can join all our colleagues from all around the world, male and female, from all sectors, so that we can be not only prepared, but we can be the vehicle that can really shape this future for our generations to come.
Great. Thank you very much. That was quite a challenge in an hour and 15 minutes to get three futurists, give us all different visions of the future. I appreciate your analysis, Dr. Sultan Al-Jaber, and the bookends, the female bookends that we had. I was thinking about it as you were wrapping your remarks. Madam Speakers, thank you for starting and finishing the session. I just want to promise the audience we'll take questions from the floor during our 3 o'clock session, looking at the economic challenges of the future and securing prosperity. That'll take place just past 3 o'clock. Nice round of applause again for our panelists, and thanks for your attention in the audience.